and welcome. I'm Asuma Katauka and you are watching NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the top stories. US President Donald Trump has said that he held a very successful meeting on Gaza at the United Nations General Assembly. Speaking to reporters as he left the UN headquarters, Trump has said that he expects Israel to join the talks soon and added that he believes a deal on Gaza can be worked out with Israel and its key leaders. China has announced it will retain its developing country status but will forego requesting special and differential treatment in future World Trade Organization agreements. The announcement made during a meeting on the sidelines of the UNGA while the US had pushed for full renunciation of SDT benefits for China. Typhoon Ragasa, the world's most powerful cyclone this year, has killed 15 people and left 154 people missing in Taiwan before flooding Hong Kong. The storm is now bearing towards China, where hundreds of flights have been cancelled and millions take emergency shelters. The Kremlin has rejected US President Donald Trump's claims that Russia is facing big economic problems and that Ukraine could retake all its land, calling his assessment wrong. While the Kremlin has said Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov would outline Russia's official stance today. Ukrainian drones have struck Russia's Salavat petrochemical complex for the second time in a week, disrupting one of Gazprom's largest fuel and chemical plants. The attacks, part of a wider strike campaign that has also hit UFA's refinery, come as peace talks stall and Russia faces fuel shortages amid reduced refinery output. Russia's finance ministry has proposed raising value-added tax from 20 to 22% starting in 2026 to help fund the military spending in the fifth year of its war with Ukraine. US President Donald Trump, commenting on Truth Social, has said that Russia is in big economic trouble and called President Vladimir Putin's war effort a paper tiger. The International Monetary Fund will send a staff mission to Nairobi, Kenya from September 25th to October 9th to begin talks on a possible IMF-backed program, as Kenya's central bank governor Kamau Thuge has said that the country wants its next arrangement to be a funded program. Kim Kyung-hee, wife of ousted former South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol, has went on trial in Seoul on charges of bribery, stock manipulation, and illegal political fundraising. If convicted, the ex-First Lady faces up to 5 years in prison, as the high-profile case continues to rock South Korean politics and religion. Israel's ground offensive continues as Palestinians inspected the site of overnight Israeli strikes on a building in Gaza City, which was sheltering displaced families. According to reports, at least 20 people were killed and many others wounded in the attack near Firas local market. Let's listen in to what a civilian has said.
نايمين بأمان الله والساعة 1:30 تقول حزام ناري 3 ورا بعض. وزي ما انت شايف دمار وخراب وبيجي 17-18 شهيد ونايمين بامان الله وفيش يعني لا حاجه لا بلغونا ولا قالوا لنا ولا حتى اعطونا اشاره. ليش مفاجئ زي ما انت شايف الخراب والدمار واطفال ونساء حوالي يمكن 200 نفر يمكن 6-7 عائلات هنا كل المربع هذا.
Additionally, reports state that more than 45 people have been killed today. Moreover, displaced Palestinians continue to flee Gaza City as Israeli forces press deeper. Tanks have been seen moving through populated and built-up areas. Let's listen into what some Gazans has said.
ايش اوصف لك يعني مش زي قبل كانوا يخشوا هيك يعني بس يعني يتركوا البيوت واقفه يعني نوعا ما. حاليا في بيجيك روبوت مفخخ بحطه في الحاره يعني الاخبار تطلع كيف.
وطلعنا نجري ولا إشي ولا حاجة زي ما انتم شايفين، قاعد اغراضنا مرميين لما سحبوا لنا الناس على الطاره. لسه امبارح جبنا اغراضنا وعفشنا كله رمل، واللي رايح واللي مقطع واللي مخرب. فيش إن يعني بجد الواحد ما يحكي ويعيط ما بوفيش اللي الواحد اللي في قلبه.
Now for this discussion, we're joined by Mark Sutherland. He's a political analyst, joins us live from London. Thank you very much, Mark, for joining us. Good to see you. Now, what does this civilian's testimony reveal about this emotional and physical toll of continued Israeli strikes on Gaza's residents?
Assuming good to join you. Respectfully, I can't see the translation of what has been said, but I can hear the emotion. As I have said consistently over the last 2 years since the awful events of the 7th of October 2023, that any deaths on both sides is deeply regrettable. As people have to then, as people like the UN leader or university governors have said, sometimes they throw that thing around that this all has to be put in a context. So let's put that in a context that since Hamas was elected by the people of Gaza when Israel withdrew 2005, withdrawing over 10,000 Israeli citizens and going for a two-state solution, they then have turned that very sadly into a rocket launch pad, have hid behind the residents of Gaza. They have built a tunnel system that's the equivalent, nearly the equivalent of the London Underground. And all of these things cannot be forgotten. The appalling atrocities of the 7th of October, the 1,200 plus citizens of Israel that were murdered when Hamas came over the border, along with citizens then of Gaza. We then look all through this, 250 hostages taken. The war would have ended the next day immediately if all the hostages were returned, dead and sadly there are some alive hostages and sadly there are dead ones, and they need to be handed back. This would have stopped. But of course, within the political melee that is now happening within the UN and within France, UK, Canada, Australia, we want to recognize a two-state solution, and in my opinion, not understanding history whatsoever, then I would turn around and that this has emboldened Hamas in this present situation. As I say, the Israelis have said, hand over the hostages. And now they are on this offensive in regard to their last step in clearing out Hamas. And when the figures come out, we have to remember, where are those figures coming from? Are they coming from, they're coming from the health authority. Under any figures, under things that are released are all under the Hamas mandate, under their control. We have to remember all of this. We also have to remember how embedded they are in regard to then being near hospitals or in hospitals as well, and they use the people on the ground as their shield. This is the situation that we are in, Asuma.
Yes, and Mark, now Trump has said that he wants to get a ceasefire done in Gaza. So based on his record in Ukraine and Russia, how likely is that he would be able to broker peace in Gaza, and what diplomatic tools does he realistically have now?
The pressure is on, and those diplomatic tools, of course, you could then argue have then been majorly dented by the fact that countries have then said, well, we are going to recognize a two-state solution. Leaders of Hamas are then saying that us reaching this point just shows you this is the fruit of our effort, which is the fruit of what happened from the 7th of October. That doesn't help in this situation at all, but they are pushing forward. Every time Hamas then, as it's done with his negotiator Witkoff, has asked for a ceasefire. Every time they have a ceasefire, the concern is, and it's happened, that they will then regroup, find other fighters that have been eliminated by the IDF, and then start all over again. The unfortunate thing is that this is not a video game. This is real life. But this is what Hamas then want. However, all of us we wish this to end. So any effort on the side of the president, on the administration, on the Trump administration, has to be supported and pushed. When you refer that in regard to Ukraine and Russia, as Trump actually said yesterday in his UN speech, when he refers to the 7 wars that he has been involved with stopping, negotiating that, he thought that the Russian-Ukraine war, as he said, which should never have started anyway, would never have started if he was the president 4 years previously, that he thought that was the easiest one to bring to the table and to end. And very sadly, as he has said, he's finding out that that is not the case. Hence his comments in regard to looking at this whole thing of where people buy their energy from, as he is putting the pressure on and asking people to join him from Western countries to turn around and say, we need to destabilize Russia economically to bring them to the table. Asuma.
Right. Thank you very much, Mark, for sharing that. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our next discussion as well. Now, in a recent radio interview, Russian presidential spokesperson Dmitry Peskov has stated that US President Donald Trump is acting like a businessman, seeking to force the world to buy American oil and liquefied natural gas at higher prices. Peskov has further added that Trump has never hidden his intention to protect U.S. economic interests, adding that the president is pushing this agenda without complex diplomacy. The Kremlin spokesperson has also noted that many European countries have started purchasing U.S. LNG at higher prices, placing additional strain on their budgets and taxpayers. Additionally, Peskov has reacted to Trump's remarks regarding the Russia-Ukraine war that he made during a bilateral meeting with Ukrainian President Zelensky on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly. He has insisted that Moscow will continue its special military operations with no alternative, as the operation is intended to safeguard Russia's national interests, both for the present and for future generations. Now we go back to our guest discussion with Mark Sutherland. He's a geopolitical commentator, joins us live from London. Thank you very much, Mark, for staying with us. Now, what's your reaction to this Russia's Dmitry Peskov characterization of President Trump's approach to U.S. energy exports, and also his approach as a businessman or business, like he conducts things like it's politics, but business without diplomacy. What's your take?
In my humble opinion, we should not be surprised by the Russian reaction to this from their communications, etc., because they are extremely good at propaganda. They will push out things like this or either say we deny this. I do believe that the Russian economy is in trouble. I think, as you alluded to in your report before we sat down to have a conversation, where Russia was looking at taxing how it can then tax its citizenry in a very different way. They are suffering when they are redressing this whole thing of liquid gas buying, and Trump saying, "Well, buy it off us. It's being shipped." Also remember in that UN speech yesterday that Donald Trump also addressed countries, particularly the UK, in saying that you've also got a way of actually having access to energy, cheap energy, by drilling in the North Sea for oil, gas, etc., and using that revenue, which is something under the ideology of left-wing stupidity that the UK government refuses to do. Russia is in a position, the Russian position is that right now there will be comments that they feel that is appropriate to then make. You alluded to the fact that there's been a side meeting. There would be discussions maybe with the Russians and with the Ukraine. Everyone in Europe wants to see these sides come together to the table. We have to begin to ask ourselves in certain quarters whether actually some people want that, or whether they want this war to either escalate and to continue. And the weapon that we do have, and Trump said this in the UN speech, he said, well, it looks as though that
Yes.
Germany, other countries are buying Russian energy, so they're like paying for the war that they're trying to stop. Assume.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much, Mark, for joining us as always and sharing your insight throughout our news. Now we move on. The United States has that it expects to finalize trade deals with Southeast Asian nations in the coming months. Speaking at a meeting with ASEAN economic ministers in Kuala Lumpur, U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer has said that talks with several countries are progressing well, with some agreements potentially just weeks away. The region has been hit hard by new American tariffs, with rates as high as 40% in Laos and Myanmar, while Vietnam risks losing of up to $25 billion a year under a 20% levy, according to the United Nations Development Program. Indonesia and Vietnam have already negotiated new deals lowering some tariffs, but concerns remain over U.S. plans to impose 100% tariffs on semiconductors. Let's listen into what Greer has said.
ASEAN is an important and consequential partner for the United States. Our combined population is over 1 billion. And as you mentioned, the total trade in goods and services is nearly $500 billion. And actually, if you look at our numbers, I think it's higher than $500 billion. You mentioned there's a 16% increase in ASEAN's exports to the United States. We, of course, welcome trade. We hope, however, that it is balanced and reciprocal. We believe that there are many areas where our interests align, and we can work together to achieve shared goals of bringing reciprocity and balance to the global trading system. We also recognize ASEAN's affirmative statement in April to approach the U.S. initiative from a framework of understanding and discussion, and that has been borne out over the past few months.
The United States says it expects to finalize trade deals with South Asian nations in the coming months, speaking at a meeting with ASEAN economic ministers in Kuala Lumpur. Now, for this discussion, we're joined by Frank Han. He's an anchor at Thai PBS, joins us live from Bangkok. Thank you very much, Frank, for joining us again. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Now, how might this expected trade deals between the U.S. and Southeast Asian nations impact the region's economies, especially considering the ongoing tariff challenges on them? Frank, could you hear me?
Hello, can you repeat your question again?
Yeah. How might this expected trade deals between the United States and Southeast Asian nations impact the region's economy, especially considering the ongoing tariff challenges on them?
Right, I think right now you're talking about trade tariff and the tariff negotiation between US and ASEAN. But I would imagine this is a very good deal for both bloc to see if there's any challenges in between, and of course the opportunities that both blocs can see. But we still see the tariff in between could be a good sign to really push for the deal in between. So that could be a very good opportunity.
And what are the potential implications of U.S. imposing 100% tariff on semiconductors for both Southeast Asian countries and global supply chains if this trade deal doesn't work out for them?
Right, if you talk about, of course, the semiconductor ban there from the United States, as in, of course, I would talk about the Southeast Asia sense here, because Malaysia, of course, they put a lot of endeavor to really push for semiconductor development in the country. They have put the efforts for 20 years, but we can also see where I am right now, Thailand. Of course, they really want to get the supply chains moving to Thailand, as in, of course, we see the tariff and trade tensions here between United States and all the blocs, including ASEAN too. So Thailand could be one of the best location to put the supply chains in Thailand for the semiconductor part. But right now, people still talking about what about the talents, skilled talents on the ground. Is that enough from Thailand? And people look at at Malaysia for the best location for now, in Vietnam too. So actually you can see right now the supply chain moving around in the globe now. Of course, we have to look at no matter NVIDIA, TSMC, of course, they still put their investment mostly in the United States. So this is the picture right now for semiconductor ban.
Right. With that, I would like to thank Frank for joining us and sharing that insight all the way from Thailand. Now we move on to our next news. A senior delegate to the Chinese mission to the WTO in Geneva has said that China will not change its developing country status, but it will forego asking for special and differential treatment in future negotiations at the World Trade Organization. This comes after the U.S. opposed countries picking and choosing SDT benefits and had wanted China to completely renounce them since it gave China an unfair advantage. According to China, its decision to forego the benefits it receives from its developing country status at the WTO shows its commitment to supporting the multilateral trading system. China has also said that it remains a key member of Global South and will always be a developing country. Now for this discussion, we're joined by Dr. Satoru Nagao. He's a fellow at Hudson Institute, joins us live from Tokyo. Thank you very much, Doctor, for joining us. Good to see you. Now, what are the benefits for China or for keeping this, this status and saying that they want to stay and keep their status quo as a developing country?
In the WTO rule, when they join the WTO, they can declare that they are the developed country or developing country. And in case of the developing country, even if they support domestic industry financially, rule is a little ease compared with the developed countries. So this is benefit. So other benefit is also they are simply said their domestic economy is not so strong. So that's why just supporting government support the domestic industry is allowed, even if the global free trade rule. That is the benefit of the developing country. The problem is once they declare they are the developing country when they join, permanently it will continue. So in case of China, China developed world number 2 economy now. In case of GDP, still China can say we are developing country. That is unfair, the view from other countries. So since 2018, many countries try to change their declaration. For example, the Taiwan is one of the examples. Singapore is also. So this country try to declare we are not developing countries anymore. So that's why this benefit they will abandon. That is their voluntary declaration and change the status has happened. But still, China hasn't done for a long time, even if China has huge economy and people call China the factory of the world. So that's why this time they start to change the attitude. Still, they want to say we are developing countries, but the benefits they start to stop it. That is the current decision. So why China declare now is the matter. For a long time, this was the matter. China should change more earlier, but this time they changed. Because China want to maintain WTO rule, because currently the United States want to change the global free trade rule itself. WTO itself is unfair, the United States start to say, and there is a possibility to be the trend. So new age is international trade with tariff, not the global free trade. So it looks like the rule has changed, and instead of the football, American football is new rule. So that's why China want to say current global free trade rule is good because China get more benefit. And so that's why China want to maintain WTO rule, the supporting WTO system. That is China want to say just now. But at the same time, why China say that? Because this is beneficial for China.
Right.
That is a problem, I think.
And Doctor, how might this China's decision to give up certain trade benefits impact its relations with the U.S.?
In case, of course, the U.S. and China, this relation is not purely economy. Indeed, this is competition, strategic competition, and which side will win is a matter. So that's why what kind of rule is beneficial for which side of the victory in the competition is a matter. So that's why on surface, China say they try to be the guardian of the global free trade. This is a benefit for other country. But indeed, this is not true. This is one of the tactics to win the competition, and other countries' benefit is not a matter. China is caring about expanding China's influence in the global south, and many countries got benefit from the global free trade. That is true, but at the same time, this is a benefit for China. That is the most important. So Americans say American policy is America first, but China also seek the China first policy. That is a reality, I think.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much, Dr. Satoru, for sharing that insight. Please stay with us. Now, the candidates for the leadership of Japan's governing Liberal Democratic Party have spoken in the debate in Tokyo ahead of the vote set for October 4th. Sanae Takaichi, a fourth runner in the contest and candidate to become Japan's first female prime minister, defended her record of visiting Japan's controversial Yasukuni Shrine, which honors Japan's war dead, including convicted war criminals, and is viewed by neighboring South Korea and China as a symbol of its past militarism. Meanwhile, Takaichi, who hails from the LDP's right wing, also set out her views on immigration, which is reportedly a hot-button topic following the far-right anti-immigration Sanseito Party's success in legislative elections last July. Fellow front-runner Shinjiro Koizumi also highlighted harsher attitude towards immigration in his pitch to party members. He also said he would meet with U.S. President Donald Trump as soon as possible if he were to be elected as a party leader and Japan's new prime minister. The next leader of the Liberal Democratic Party is likely to become prime minister, as the party is by far the largest in the lower house of parliament, but the path is not guaranteed as the LDP lost its majority in both houses under Ishiba. Let's listen into what Shinjiro Koizumi and Sanae Takaichi has said.
自民党が一つになり、野党の皆さんと合意をしたものを進め、そして国民の皆さんの課題を解決する姿を見ていただいて、一つ一つ自民党の信頼回復。
何が一番大事かといったら、これはもう冒頭に申し上げました。日本の底力を最大限発揮して経済成長をさせることです。それができなければ必要な福祉も、そして質の高い教育もできません。日々の暮らしも豊かにならない。みんなも夢を持てない。だからこそ経済成長戦略を最優先。
Now for this discussion, we go back to Dr. Satoru Nagao. He's a fellow at Hudson Institute, joins us live from Tokyo. Thank you very much, Doctor, for staying with us. Now looking at these two candidates, especially Sanae Takaichi, a frontrunner in this contest and candidate to become Japan's first female prime minister. So how popular are they, and how likely is Japan to elect its first female leader?
Indeed, she is female. That is quite a fresh image, new image for Japan. For many people in Japan, despite the current Liberal Democratic Party, ruling party, is a very conservative mindset. This means conservative do not mean just right. In this case, conservative meaning the people do not want to change is gathering this party is the image. One of the things is most of the leader or member of parliament male. For example, compare with the new rising right-wing party Sanseto, nearly 20% of the member of parliament in the upper house in the current ruling party, LDP, is female. So 80% is not female, male. And in case of the Sanse party, new party, even if they're right-wing, half and half, they're male half and female half. So that's why view from the male or female, this LDP ruling party's image is very conservative. But once Takaichi will be the leader of the LDP, this is the first time female leader sworn in such kind of the conservative party. So that's why this image is very important. But at the same time, only the new image people worry about, supporter of this conservative style party, worry about only the new image if Takaichi show. So that's why Takaichi's policy is relatively conservative, because in the foreign policy, the relatively strong defense strategy or crisis management, she tried to choose a strong, fortify Japan, or something like that is one of the example. Then as a symbol, she visited Yasukuni Shrine. This is, of course, this is a shrine to respect war dead, people who sacrifice for Japan defense. So that's why even if other countries, some country criticize her visit to Yasukuni Shrine, she tried to visit because she want to send a message in front of the conservative people. She is a guardian of the conservative mindset or strong defense of Japan, but that's something like that. And another aspect is she focusing on economic policy. This is a national power, Japan growing up, that image is needed. Because she is female, female means that quite new image, in this case, people worry about, so that's why she has a power she wants to show. In case of Koizumi face a little bit similar crisis in this case, because in case of him, he is young. Young means that view from the conservative mindset, they worry about young leader. So 40 years guy is young. So in this case, he also visited Yasukuni Shrine. Why the strong Japan rely on this visit? And another policy is also conservative, some case, because he is young, means that new policy he can suggest. That is, some certain people expected he will choose something new. But at the same time, the conservative supporter also want to hear he will maintain the conservative part of the policies. So that's why both Mr. Takaichi and Mr. Koizumi need to show the new image and the old image. The combination of two is important.
Right. With that, I would like to thank our guest, Dr. Satoru Nagao, for joining us and sharing that insight from Japan. Now we move on to our news from Africa. A drone strike on a market in Sudan's besieged city of El Fasher has killed at least 15 people, according to reports citing a medical worker at the local hospital. Reportedly, the strike has also wounded 12 others, with 3 of them wounded critically. Local resistance committees have called the attack a massacre that killed and wounded a total of 27 people and accused the paramilitary rapid support forces known as RSF of carrying it out. This comes after a senior government official and his wife were reportedly killed in western Sudan's North Darfur state, while thousands fled the regional capital El Fasher amid escalating violence. Well, this is all we have time for. We will continue to bring you more news updates from around the world.